In my past life, my younger sister was adopted by a wealthy family. I was adopted by a cleaner. But the wealthy family was full of brutal internal conflicts. The parents were cold and distant. The older brother bullied her nonstop. She ended up leaving the family with nothing. My family, though, was super warm and harmonious. What's more, the rich family's young master fell for me, a sweet, humble girl from a poor background. It was all just like a plot from an idol drama. My sister killed me out of bitter hatred. And we both traveled back to the day we got adopted. This time, she rushed to throw herself into the cleaner's arms first. Sis, this time the idol drama lead role is mine. But she has no idea. The reason a female lead is the female lead is never her family background. My sister and I both traveled back to the day we got adopted from the orphanage. There were two families standing in the director's office, the Gu family and the Zhou family. All three members of the Gu family were impeccably dressed. The husband wore a crisp, formal suit. The wife was dripping with expensive jewelry. Their only son, Gu Zhiyue, wore a high school uniform. But he had on his feet a pair of worldwide, limited edition co-branded sneakers. This was the Gu family, the most prominent clan in Jiangcheng. Father Gu was a top business tycoon. His companies contributed the largest share of Jiangcheng's tax revenue. Mother Gu was a famous socialite. She often appeared at various jewelry auctions and charity galas, mingling and toasting with A-list celebrities. Their son Gu Zhiyue, on the other hand, was known as the Prince of Jiangcheng. In comparison, the Zhou family next to them looked totally unpolished. Both the husband and wife had hands covered in calluses from doing manual labor. They had probably picked out their nicest clothes, but there were still unwashed sweat stains on them. According to the director's introduction, the couple both worked at Jiangcheng No. 1 High School. The husband was a school janitor. The wife worked as a cleaner. In my past life, my sister Shiman chose the Gu family without hesitation. But right at this moment, she was rushing as if scared of falling behind, and dove straight into the cleaner's arms. Mom, take me with you. I want to be your daughter. From now on, my name will be Zhou Shiman. Amid my sister's excited shouts, I walked over to the Gu family. And just like that, the adoption choices were finalized. We were taken away by our respective families. When we left the orphanage, I heard the director muttering to himself in confusion. Weird, Shiman has always been super ambitious and competitive. Of all the adopters that came before, any that dressed even a little plain, she wouldn't even glance at them. Now that a real wealthy family is here, why is she not choosing them instead? The director didn't understand the reason, but I knew exactly what was going on. In the past life, my sister tried her best to get adopted by the Gu family first, and became Gu Shiman. She thought what awaited her was a life like a little princess, not to mention having someone like Gu Zhiyue, Jiangcheng's prince, as her older brother. Everyone knows a rich heir and an adopted daughter are the most common pairing in romance novels. Living under the same roof, it's easy to spend all your time together and develop romantic feelings for each other. But Shiman never could have imagined. Gu Zhiyue was not gentle as an adopted brother at all. In fact, he hated her guts. I hate snobs more than anything in this world. Don't think I can't tell. A scheming gold digger like you. You're just after our family's money, aren't you? At home, Gu Zhiyue picked on Gu Shiman all the time. At school, he brought his group of goons to bully her. Even when the Gu parents found out, they only gave him a few mild, meaningless scoldings at most. They didn't have any fondness for Shiman at all. The reason they adopted her was only because a fortune teller told Father Gu adopting a daughter would bring him great luck for the next 10 years. Between an adopted daughter and their biological son, the Gu parents naturally favored their own son. While Gu Zhiyue was bullying Shiman, he was extremely nice to me, the girl adopted by the Zhou family. He saw me receiving financial aid, always ranking first in exams, going to school during the day, and helping my mom with cleaning work at night. Even though life was really hard for me, I never complained about anything. Zhou Shichu, this girl, is actually pretty interesting. Just like what happens in idol dramas. The rebellious, arrogant, rich young master fell in love with the tough, unyielding, poor little sweetheart. Later, the Gu parents passed away. When it was time to divide the inheritance, Gu Zhiyue brought a whole team of lawyers. Shiman was completely set up and lost everything, and left the Gu family with nothing. She didn't get a single cent of the family fortune. A few months later, Gu Zhiyue married me. He even said publicly at the wedding, "Zhou Shichu, everything I have is yours from now on." Too bad I never got to enjoy Gujiue's fortune. Because a few days later, Shi-man, who was driven mad with despair, ran me over with her car and killed me. Now that I'm reborn into this life, my little sister chose the Zhou family without hesitation. They don't have mountains of wealth, but there's no scheming or infighting either. She gets all the wholehearted love from her parents and grows up in a happy family. Plus, her background will get her pity and protection from a rich heir, and finally get a fairy tale grand wedding. She smiled and said to me, "Sis, it's my turn to be the fancy idol princess this time. And you, it's your turn to taste all the suffering I went through." Zhou Shiman's prediction was spot on. She even looked past me, to the space behind my back. I knew Zhou Shiman was right there, bending over, mopping the floor. Isn't that Zhou Shiman? Why is she mopping the floor? One of Gujiue's lackeys told him, Zhou Shiman's mom works as a cleaner at the school. She goes to class during the day and helps her mom with work every night. A flicker of shock crossed Gujiue's face, followed by a twinge of pity. He yelled at Zhou Shiman, "Hey, stop mopping. It's freezing out. No one's gonna inspect it anyway." Zhou Shiman straightened up, her black hair falling over her shoulders. A stubborn look on her delicate face. She shook her head. "I can't. If someone comes to check and finds the floor isn't clean, my mom will get 100 yen deducted from her pay. I know that. 100 won is nothing to a rich kid like you, but it's enough to cover my food costs for a whole week." With that, Zhou Shiman bent over to keep mopping. Zhou Shiman's little scheme was super obvious. There were so many other areas to mop, but she deliberately chose to mop right in front of Gujiue. She even let her hair down on purpose, and positioned herself perfectly to look as pretty as possible. Too bad Gujiue totally fell for it, obviously. Gujiue walked up to her, pulled Zhou Shiman up to her feet, snatched the mop cloth from her hand, and threw it to his lackeys. "You guys, help her finish mopping the rest of the floor." He glanced at Zhou Shiman's red frozen hands, thought for a second, then draped his own jacket over her shoulders. "It's so late. How are you getting home later?" "By bike." "You're riding a bike in this freezing weather," he said in an undoubtable tone right after. "Wait for me downstairs. I'll have my driver take you home." Zhou Shiman left under Gujiue's protection before she left. She even snuck a look back and gave me, who looked completely embarrassed, a mocking smile. A little while later, everyone left. I was the only one left by the sink. I struggled to get up. I wiped the water dripping from my hair with my sleeve. A cold, clear voice came from behind me. "Use this." I turned around. It was Song Xiaoli, our class monitor. She was a quiet girl who rarely spoke and studied really hard. She wore long sleeves no matter the season, in my past life. She also tried to help Zhou Shiman when she was being bullied. She handed Zhou Shiman a towel and told her to report Gujiue's bullying, but Zhou Shiman swatted her hand away. "What do you know? He's my brother." Back then, Zhou Shiman was still delusional enough to hope that Gujiue would fall for her someday. So Song Xiaoli stopped bothering with her after that and went back to being quiet and keeping to herself. Later, right before graduation, Song Xiaoli killed herself. That's when we found out. Her family was extremely poor. Her grandma was bedridden all year round. Her dad was a gambling addict. He not only abused her constantly, but also planned to sell her to pay off his debts. Right now, she was standing next to me, holding a clean towel in her hand. I froze for a second. I took it, and she didn't say anything else, then turned around and left. She probably thought there was nothing to say to a spoiled rich girl from the Gu family. Just as her figure was about to disappear, I suddenly spoke up, "Monitor." She stopped in her tracks. I scratched my head. I just transferred here, and I don't know my way around yet. Where's the cafeteria? Can you show me the way?" There were 4 dishes and 1 soup on the cafeteria table. Braised pork ribs, steamed egg with minced pork, cola, chicken wings, stir-fried choy sum, and clam and winter melon soup. No wonder this is the best high school in Zhangcheng. The cafeteria food is always top tier. I scratched my head again. Oops, I ordered way too much by accident. Wasting food is bad, you know. You probably haven't had dinner yet, right? Let's eat together. Song Xiaoli was quiet for a few seconds, and finally picked up her chopsticks. Took small, slow bites of food. I stared at her thin wrist sticking out of her school uniform sleeve. It looked so fragile and lonely, honestly. Girls like the class monitor are the ones who really need help. But they're not pretty, and they never cry about their pain. So they end up as nothing but insignificant weeds in people's teenage memories. They don't even qualify to be the lead in a romance drama. In this life, I will not only save myself, but also save her. Once I made up my mind, I spoke up, ugh, conic sections are so damn hard. I can't understand a single thing. Monitor, you're such a good student. Can you tutor me, please? Song Xiaoli had braised pork rib in her mouth and looked totally shocked, like, do we even know each other that well? I didn't give her a chance to say no. I slung an arm around her shoulder and said cheerfully, it's settled then. I'll pay you for the tutoring. I gave the monitor part of my living allowance, calling it advance payment for tutoring fees. She stared at the 100 red banknotes in the envelope, too shocked to say a word. Actually, in both my past life and this life, the Gu family never skimped on the basic food, clothing, daily supplies, and living allowance for their adopted daughter. But the small change to Gu Jiyue, when given to Song Xiaoli, was enough for her to buy medicine for her grandma, pay the hospital bills, and even rent a small apartment off campus. To get away from her abusive father, after arranging the next day's tutoring time with the monitor, I went home. The luxurious villa was completely empty. Father Gu was out on business dinners. Mother Gu was at the beauty salon getting skincare treatments. As for Gu Jiyue, he was probably eating at the Zhou family's place right now. In my past life, Gu Jiyue asked the driver to take me home, and the Zhou couple, my adoptive parents, saw him and warmly invited him to stay for dinner. Then, just like the standard plot in romance dramas, that one dinner made the young master who grew up in the cold and privileged wealthy family feel the strong family warmth of a poor household, the simple, honest smiles always on the Zhou couple's faces, the small, shabby but cozy home filled with the warmth of daily life, all made Gu Jiyue yearn for that kind of life, and made him even fonder of the pure little white flower, who grew up in that kind of family. Right now, even though he and Zhou Shiman are eating plain, grease-free food, deep down, they're probably both really happy. I slowly changed into my Hermes nightgown, washed my face with Chanel facial cleanser, and ate a bowl of rock sugar bird's nest the nanny brought up. A cold sneer tugged at the corner of my mouth. No one knows. The Zhou couple are indeed poor. But they're far from honest and kind. They favor sons over daughters. They originally wanted to adopt a boy, but the orphanage had no able-bodied boys available at all, so they settled for the next best option, decided to pick a pretty daughter, so they could marry her off to a rich son-in-law later. When they saw Gu Jiyue send their daughter home, the couple were over the moon with excitement and immediately dragged this potential ideal son-in-law inside to treat him well. The so-called family affection, the so-called warmth of daily life, was all just an act. And in my past life, when I told them I didn't want to marry Gu Jiyue, my adoptive mother locked me in my room. My adoptive father used a table leg and a belt to beat me half to death. Shiman thinks she's entered heaven in this life, but she doesn't know there's no real heaven in this world. The Gu family is a wealthy hell. The Zhou family is a poor hell. Whoever can climb out of hell alive, all depends on their own abilities. In the following days, Gu Jiyue's malice grew worse and worse. The lunch the nanny prepared for me, when I opened the lunchbox, was filled completely with thumbtacks. Dead spiders would come out when I squeezed my facial cleanser and toothpaste. The skirts in my wardrobe were burned full of holes by cigarette butts, and every time I looked up in shock, I would meet Gu Jiyue's vicious grin. He mouthed at me, "Gu Shichu, you deserve this." Gu Jiyue thought I would cry, but I just calmly poured out the thumbtacks, threw the spiders into the trash can, folded the skirts neatly and put them away. The smile on Gu Jiyue's face disappeared. He stared at me fiercely and said in a voice almost grinding with hatred, "Let's see how long you can keep pretending." Luckily this time, even though I have to put up with Gu Jiyue's malice, all the Gu family's resources are also at my disposal. I don't have to live the old life where I went to school during the day and was forced to do housework for my adoptive mother at night. Instead, there's a nanny taking care of me. A driver takes me wherever I need to go. I only need to focus on my studies. In my past life, when I wanted to buy extra study materials, I had to save up money for ages on my own. I also had to make sure my adoptive father wouldn't take my money and spend it on booze and poker games. But now my closet is full of designer dresses and outfits. My jewelry box holds pieces from Van Cleef and Arpels and Cartier. Mom Gu gave all these to me casually. I don't have to pay a cent for any of them. On top of that, I get 50,000 yuan in pocket money at the start of every month, in cash, plus a credit card with a 100,000 yuan limit. If I run out of money, I just need to tell the housekeeper, and more money will be transferred to my card in half an hour. But all the hardship I went through in the past has now fallen entirely on Zhou Shiman. I notice she sleeps through all her classes. Since she has to work for her adoptive mom at night, she never gets enough sleep. Gradually, she stops doing her homework and turns in blank exam papers. In my past life, I survived on black coffee. When I got super sleepy, I'd prick myself with a compass. I pushed myself to study no matter what. But in her past life, Zhou Shiman lived the life of a pampered and privileged wealthy young lady. She doesn't have that kind of drive or perseverance, not to mention she doesn't care about school at all. In her opinion, becoming the fiancé of the Gu family's heir is way more valuable than getting into Tsinghua or Peking University. So Zhou Shiman puts all her energy into figuring out how to make Gu Zhiyu like her more. She skips listening in math class and secretly writes diaries meant only for Gu Zhiyue under the desk. She skips dance rehearsals, sneaks out of school with Gu Zhiyue to go for drives in the suburbs and stargaze together. Then right before the dance performance, she sits outside the rehearsal room crying. I bet Zhou Shiman specifically studied how female leads cry in idol dramas, tilting her head 45 degrees to look at the sky, holding tears in her eyes, trying hard not to let them fall until Gu Zhiyue walks by and sees her. She throws herself into Gu Zhiyue's arms and bursts out crying loudly. Zhiyue, I lost my chance to perform on stage. All the other girls in the class get to perform. Only Gu Shichu won't let me join. Gu Zhiyue already hated me to the core and gets furious the second he hears this. Why, she said, my mom is just a cleaner. My dad is just a security guard. I can't even afford a performance costume, so I don't deserve to go on stage. Gu Zhiyue's face gets darker and darker. He looks at Zhou Shiman, who's crying so hard she can barely breathe, and says in a low voice, It's just a performance costume, right? I'll buy it for you. No, it costs 800 yuan each. I can't accept such an expensive gift from you. How dare Gu Shichu treat you like this? He blurts out in anger. After all, she's your little sister, the young lady of the Gu family. Your family donated several buildings in this school. Your dad is also an honorary school director. Even if the teachers know she's bullying people, what can they even do about it? Zhou Shiman doesn't notice that just then reporters who came to the school to do interviews are walking past right behind her. They poke their heads over. The reporters are like sharks that smell blood and ask sharply, bullying. What bullying are you talking about? The situation blew up out of nowhere just like that. In the largest meeting room of the school, a huge crowd of people are standing around. The principal, vice principals, and discipline director, homeroom teachers, and reporters from various newspapers, and the parents from the Gu and Zhou families are all present. Zhou's parents are shielding a tear-stained Zhou Shiman. Standing in a corner of the meeting room, their faces full of grievance and anger. Mom and Dad Gu originally got the call and heard I was in trouble. They didn't want to come at first, until they heard that even the newly appointed Education Bureau director was there. So they rushed over in a hurry. Zhangcheng No. 1 High School is the top high school in the city, and a key model school for the Education Bureau. Dad Gu obviously has an old friendship with the bureau director. He walks straight over to the director as soon as he enters and says smoothly, This is such a small issue. We didn't mean to alarm Director Li. It's just a little fight between kids, that's all. But the Education Bureau director is very upright and doesn't buy this excuse at all. Mr. Gu, bullying is never a small issue no matter what. I know Gu Shichu is your daughter, but every child is a student to me. All of them are saplings. I can't just watch them grow crooked. With him saying that much, Dad Gu can't say anything more. He can only force a smile. Yes, we also don't know what happened yet. Please go ahead with your investigation. He walks back to Mom Gu's side. The two of them exchange a quiet look. I know exactly what that means. If the bullying accusation against me is confirmed, the Gu family will abandon me immediately. This adopted daughter they have no affection for, and cut all ties with me completely. Even Gu's parents have this kind of attitude. As for Gu Zhiyue, she stood next to Zhou Shiman, who was sobbing nonstop, whispering soft comforts to her. Every now and then she lifted her dark eyes and glanced at me coldly. Seeing everyone had arrived, the principal spoke up to ask Zhou Shiman, Miss Zhou, please tell us what happened. Jo Shiman lifted her red, puffy eyes from crying and repeated in a low voice what she'd told Gu Zhiyue. The reporters were already seething with righteous anger. One of them spoke first. We did some research before we came here. Gu Shichu and Jo Shiman used to be friends at the same orphanage. They even called each other sisters back then. Later, Gu Shichu was adopted by the Gu group, but Jo Shiman's adoptive parents are just regular school staff. Does getting adopted by a rich family mean Gu Shichu can bully her former friend and take away opportunities that rightfully belong to her? Dead silence fell over the room. All the reporters were staring right at me. The red lights on the cameras kept flashing. Everyone was dying to dig up a juicy scoop. After all, this is a super sensitive social issue. Right now, social classes are getting more and more rigid. If kids from rich families keep taking educational resources that should go to poor kids and blocking their path to upward mobility, that's enough to spark massive public outrage. Not to mention the main characters of this news story are me and Jo Shiman, an extremely dramatic pair of foils. In the office so quiet you could hear a pin drop. I suddenly snickered out loud. The sound was totally abrupt. All the reporters exchanged confused looks.